Darren, could you begin by telling me what cold reading is and how it's used?
Cold reading, I suppose, is the way that a complete stranger can seemingly tell you everything about yourself without being psychic and without knowing anything about you. In essence, the cold reader or psychic is supplying a lot of words, and you as the sitter, the other person, is supplying the meaning to those words. And it relies on a lot of techniques. It's not really a question of forensic body reading and the sort of things that people might... It's not really normally even that clever. There are linguistic tricks which, unless you're aware of them, are very easy to fall for. And those tricks can give the impression that the person knows everything about your character, or might refer to facts and things from your life or from your past that they seemingly couldn't know about.
So if a psychic, a so-called psychic, a trickster, was trying to pretend to guess, I don't know, the name of the sitter's grandfather or something like that, what would be the kind of thing they might do?
Well, very often, I mean, even guessing the name of a grandfather, if you back up, what tends to happen is that the psychic will, if it's with a group of people, throw out a name and say, I'm getting the name John or Albert or some name that's sort of suitable for the age group they're working with. And now that name could refer to a person in the audience who's living, or it could refer to someone that's died, or it could be a friend of the person. It really could be anything. So it's up to somebody to pick up on it and turn it into what they want it to be. And of course, if they say, yes, that was my husband, then the reader can go, yes, that's right, he's here, he's saying he still loves you, or whatever that is. And they turn it back into, make it sound as if they were saying it was your husband, when in fact it could have been anybody, it could have been the name of the person that was sat there. The kind of methods that involved, the Barnum statement's very sort of famous and well known about, and there's a great experiment.
Remind us what the Barnum...
Yeah, well, there's a terrific experiment that was done on this with students. I've filmed this myself. We did it with 3 different groups of people across the world, where you have everybody in the group is given a reading, a personality reading, and normally beforehand there's some nonsense about asking for their birth date or getting some objects off them. So there's some sort of process apparently involved, and they're given a reading, and it's a long reading. It's a very detailed personality reading, and they all get one individually. They're all asked to read it. And invariably, they will all say afterwards that it's very, very accurate, that it was not at all vague or ambiguous of what people might expect. And they'll give it 85, 90, 95% accuracy. And I've seen this happen, and people are amazed by it. And then you get them to swap with each other. And so perhaps you can identify someone else by their reading, then they realise they've all been given exactly the same thing. Which was written months ago before I even met them, And the statements that fill those sorts of readings are generally Barnum statements. And Barnum statements are things which essentially apply to anybody. This is only part of the cold reading skill, but it's a major part of it.
To show how people fall for this, some years ago for Good Morning America, I had an astrologer do a chart on a mass murderer, Ed Kemper.
Let me pass these out.
Then I gave it to these students, telling them it was their horoscope.
Charlotte Hunter?
Would the mass murderer's horoscope capture their personality? You bet.
I love me.
Why are you laughing? Is it accurate?
Yes.
I don't know if I was a believer or a non-believer. I was kind of like in the middle. But this is most of it is me.
How many feel that this came pretty close to capturing you? Okay, I hate to tell you this, but you all got the same horoscope.
Did we?
And I told them whose horoscope it really was.
He's a mass murderer.
I'm glad I didn't tell anybody about this.
In 1949, researcher Bernard R. Forer published the results of an experiment he conducted on the fallacy of personal validation. Forer was able to convince the vast majority of his 39 psychology students that a generic personality profile was written just for them. In fact, he got the majority of the statements on this personality profile from a newsstand astrology book. This effect, or a variation of it, goes by several names, including the Barnum effect, subjective validation, and personal validation effect, all of which have been empirically validated several times since 1949. Now, this effect is strongly related to paranormal beliefs in that it has a bidirectional relationship with paranormal beliefs. Those who claim to have paranormal powers exploit this effect in order to get more believers in their powers. Now, those who have a greater tendency to believe in the paranormal are significantly more likely to fall victim to the Forer effect, creating a loop of gullibility. The Forer effect is what makes cold reading possible. Cold reading is actually a very learnable skill that's often attributed to paranormal abilities. Somebody who is skilled at cold reading will make some very generic and general statements to try to get some facial feedback from the other person. If the other person does not respond or has no strong facial response to any of the statements that are thrown out, the person doing the cold reading will change it up and throw something else out and see if it sticks. Eventually, there will be a hit. Eventually, the cold reader will say something that sparks some excitement or some kind of emotional reaction in the person that they're doing the reading for. As this process continues, the participant usually offers information to add details to what the cold reader threw out in the first place. Due to the confirmation bias, anybody who is a believer of these kind of psychic abilities is more likely to forget all of the misses that happen and remember the hits. They're also less likely to remember that they were the ones who volunteered a lot of the information. So the next time you go to your favorite Chinese restaurant, you break open that fortune cookie, you rip out the fortune, and you read it, and you're about to think that it was written just for you. Remember the Forer effect, and don't make any major life changes based on fortune cookies.
It's all bollocks, isn't it? That's what the men would say, isn't it? It's all bollocks.